$6 billion. That was the market value of a gold mine that contained almost no gold. In 1997, Bre-X Minerals collapsed overnight, wiping out pension funds, retail investors, and some of the biggest institutional money managers on the planet. All because a geologist named Michael de Guzman had been stuffing rock samples with gold shavings from his own jewelry. This is the autopsy of the greatest mining fraud in recorded history. Bre-X started the way most catastrophic frauds do, with a real idea and genuine ambition. David Walsh was a Calgary stockbroker who had spent most of his career losing money on speculative ventures. By 1993, he was broke, running his mining company out of his basement, maxing out credit cards to keep the lights on. When he heard about a promising stretch of jungle in the Buseng region of Borneo, Indonesia, he scraped together enough capital to stake a claim and hired a Filipino geologist named Michael de Guzman to go find out what was in the ground. What de Guzman reported back changed everything. He said the Buseng deposit was extraordinary. His drill core samples, cylinders of rock pulled from deep underground, came back loaded with gold. Not just a little gold. Impossible gold. He kept revising the estimates upward. 2 million ounces, then 10 million, then 30 million, then 71 million ounces of gold. At market prices, that was a deposit worth over $20 billion. It would have been the largest gold discovery of the 20th century. The stock did what stock always does when someone announces the discovery of a lifetime. Bre-X shares went from pennies to over $200 on the Toronto Stock Exchange. The market capitalization reached $6 billion. Mutual funds loaded up. Ontario teachers' pension money went in. Fidelity Investments bought a position. The government of Indonesia got involved, and so did Freeport-McMoRan, one of the largest mining companies in the world, which was brought in as a development partner. This was no longer a penny stock. This was a national-scale mining operation in the works. Here is the mechanism of what was actually happening, explained simply. When you drill for minerals, you pull up a core of rock. That core gets split in half. One half stays in the field as a reference. The other half gets crushed into powder and sent to a laboratory for chemical analysis. The analysis tells you what percentage of that rock is gold. A figure above 1 gram per ton is considered promising. Figures above 3 are exceptional. De Guzman's samples were coming back far above that. But de Guzman was salting the samples. Before the crushed rock powder was sent to the lab, he and allegedly a small number of associates were mixing gold into it. The gold came from the local river, alluvial gold, tiny rounded flakes worn smooth by water. You can buy it from villagers along the Buseng River for almost nothing. A small amount of gold, carefully mixed into a core sample, produces an assay result that looks like a bonanza. Do that across hundreds of drill sites over 3 years, and you have built a $6 billion fiction out of river dust. The fraud survived as long as it did for one simple reason: nobody checked. Bre-X controlled the sample preparation process at Buseng. The cores were split, crushed, and bagged at a Bre-X facility before they ever left the site. Independent oversight was minimal. When analysts visited the project, they were shown the infrastructure, the drill rigs, the activity, the theater of a functioning operation. The numbers on paper were so extraordinary that skeptics were dismissed as people who simply didn't understand the geology of Buseng. That is a classic feature of fraud. When the story is big enough, doubt becomes socially costly. The unraveling began on March 19, 1997, and it was violent. 2 days before that, Michael de Guzman had boarded a helicopter in Borneo, allegedly on his way to meet with Freeport executives who were asking hard questions about why their own independent sampling of the Busang deposit was coming back with almost no gold. Freeport's preliminary results showed a deposit not of 71 million ounces, but of perhaps 2 million ounces, a fraction of the claim, and possibly not even economically viable. De Guzman never arrived at that meeting. His body was found in the jungle below the helicopter's flight path. The Indonesian authorities ruled it a suicide. He was 41 years old. On March 19th, Freeport went public with the news that their due diligence drilling had failed to confirm the deposit. Bre-X stock was halted on the Toronto Stock Exchange. When it reopened, it fell by 80% in a single session. Within days, it was essentially worthless. Investors who had bought at the peak lost everything. People who had put retirement savings into Bre-X mutual fund positions saw those positions evaporate. The Ontario Securities Commission launched a full investigation. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police opened a criminal probe. A definitive independent analysis by Strathcona Mineral Services, released in May 1997, confirmed what Freeport had found. The Busang deposit was, in their words, the result of tampering with core samples on a scale without precedent in the history of the mining industry. The gold in those samples was consistent with alluvial river gold, not hard rock gold, meaning it had been introduced artificially. There was no mine. There had never been a mine. David Walsh died of a brain aneurysm in 1998 before he could be charged. John Felderhoff, Bre-X's chief geologist, was eventually tried by the Ontario Securities Commission for insider trading. He had sold approximately $84 million worth of Bre-X stock before the collapse. He was acquitted in 2007 after a 10-year legal process. The judge found the OSC had not proven its case beyond the required standard. Nobody was ever convicted of fraud in connection with Bre-X. De Guzman, the man whose hands allegedly did the salting, was dead. The people who lost their money got nothing back. Several thousand small investors and dozens of institutional funds absorbed losses totaling close to $6 billion in destroyed market value. Pension funds filed civil suits. Some recovered fractions through insurance. Most recovered nothing at all. A jungle in Borneo that was worth nothing before 1993 was worth nothing again by 1997. The only thing that had changed was the shape of the hole, in the ground and in people's accounts. The lesson Bre-X leaves behind is not complicated. When an investment story is too extraordinary to be true, the correct response is not enthusiasm. It is verification. Independent, adversarial, repeat verification. Not a visit to the site, not a meeting with management, not a review of the numbers that management provided. The gold was always in the samples, because de Guzman put it there before the samples left his hands. The entire fraud lived and died at that single point of control. Every investor, every institution, every government that touched Bre-X trusted the sample chain. None of them broke it. $6 billion teaches one lesson. Trust is not a risk management strategy. Verify the thing itself, or do not buy the thing at all.